OG's Conference, what up? This is the Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario, oakridgeford.com. If you need a vehicle, get at me right away, especially if you're in Southwestern Ontario. I can take care of your Ford new and pre-owned needs. Wow. April 30th, 2023. It's going to be a very special day throughout for Leafs converts, Leafs OGs, Leafs fans in general, because the collective monkey is off their backs. And more importantly, the monkey is off the Maple Leafs backs. After 19 years and try after try, time after time, failure after failure, the Maple Leafs have won a first-round Stanley Cup playoff series. 2-1 over the Lightning. John Tavares just putting it on net. And it trickles past Andrei Vasilevsky to clinch this bloody thing. 2-1, a third straight overtime win in Tampa. Mike, the Leafs are moving on to the second round. Hallelujah. Good morning.
Good morning, Norm. Okay, here is what I heard at around 10:15, I think, was a collective sigh.
Right.
Because not only from the team, they won't say it. They'll say, well, this is round one of what we want to do. I get that. That's but this was weighing on them.
Right.
Clearly, it was weighing. I mean, after game 5 in the media room, Mitch Marner came out and he said a sort of an expletive underneath his voice. It's like, which I can only interpret as, I really don't want to face these questions again, again. And I personally didn't want to write the same story again and again and again. But this was a different team, but the series was going the way that other Leaf series have gone, in the sense that they had an opportunity to finish in game 5 and they didn't. So this was not an unnecessary game. I give a lot of credit to Tampa Bay, but this clearly was a different team in the sense that they had players who stood up at the right time. And the additions that Kyle Dubas, I mean, first of all, Kyle Dubas is going to get a contract extension. Now that he's won a series, they're going to sign him to a long-term extension. I would not be surprised if Sheldon Keefe gets re-upped. Not to say that they're satisfied with just with one round, but they needed to get over this hump. And, just the collective relief of not only the city of Toronto, who, I bet I wasn't up there last night, but I guess it was partying in the streets. And it's pathetic that they have to party in the streets after a first round game. Not to say that the fans celebrating is pathetic, but the fact that there's been so much futility over 19 years that it was just like an expression of emotion that they were able to go out there and celebrate. But, and we'll look forward to who they play against, but you have to give credit to the organization and to Kyle Dubas to what they did at the deadline and the players that he brought in at the deadline. Achari, O'Reilly, Jake McCabe was pretty solid in terms of his checking on the ice, and Luke Schenn. That was the best third round pick this team has ever spent in a trade. Was for Luke Schenn, because Luke Schenn slots in on the top pairing with O'Reilly, and that was the best pairing that the Leafs had the entire series. So, full marks to the Leafs. I doubted whether they could get past Tampa. Now, I mean, I'm not letting the cat out of the bag. If they play Boston, I'm probably picking Boston. But, it's an achievement that they finally broke this streak.
This is the Convo for Oak Ridge Ford. Norm in London, Ontario. Mike in Buffalo, New York. Happy birthday to Garrett Sissons, celebrating his birthday, celebrating a Maple Leafs first round win. Tampa, when you look at the breakdown of possession, seemed to carry the play for the most part, right? They took it to the Leafs in game 1. The Leafs responded in game 2, but through 3, 4, 5, and even for periods of 6, Tampa, wouldn't say they were dominant, but they really took it to the Maple Leafs. And it's such a thin line that we're congratulating Keefe and Dubas and everybody for all of their accomplishments, because it could have gone the other way. And we could, at this point, lamenting what they were not able to accomplish and waiting for news of their termination. Such a thin line. Now, when you look at the possession stats and you look at the way this game broke down, and you made this point to me before we went live, Tampa's support guys were the ones scoring the goals and doing a lot of the, offensive work. When you look at Point, Stamkos, Kucherov, those guys chipped in, but they weren't phenomenal. On the flip side, it was the Leafs' top guys who were scoring. Marner with 11 points. Matthews with a ton of goals, 9 points. Nylander, 7 points. Tavares, he did, he was a bit spotty, but, you throw the puck on net, goes off of Darren Radish's skate, past one of the best goaltenders in the world. He gets a goal, 7 points in the series, looks like a bloody hero. So it was interesting how it broke down that way, Mike. The Leafs got it done. But I've used this phrase and these terms over and over again. They still leave more to be desired. Maybe that more is coming in the next series, and it had better.
Well, I mean, Austin Matthews stepped up when this team needed it. 2 goals in game 4, a goal in game 5, a goal in game 6. Scoring when this team needed, Marner, like you said, he was more of a playmaker in the series. Tavares, it was sort of spotty. I mean, he had the hat trick in game 2, and then he was -3 in game 3.
Right.
But he was. I mean, he's a solid player. But I don't know if this team would have won with just the core guys. I think Kyle Dubas has learned that you need, just like Edmonton with McDavid and Draisaitl, you need to provide support players around those star players to be able to enable them to win. And, Edmonton it's taken them a long time to learn that. And I think it's taken a little while for Kyle Dubas to, and it's a tough nut to crack, because you're going to be paying that core 4 group $40 million. So you're going to have to pick here or there to sign other players to support. And that we'll talk about who should be back, after the playoffs.
Yeah.
But if I'm Dubas, I'm signing up for bringing back O'Reilly and bringing back Achari and bringing back Luke Shen, because they have provided something that this team hasn't had, which is that sort of sandpaper and experience. And I think that got this team over the line.
So we haven't even brought him up yet, but let's be honest. He's integral to the Leafs advancing, and it not just because of his performance last night throughout this bloody series.
Right.
Ilya Samsonov is on the main stage. He's broken out. This is his time. Will it ultimately be a time for him to hoist the Stanley Cup and win a Conn Smythe trophy? That's a long shot, but he's still in contention to do so. But man, oh man, he was phenomenal this series.
Well, how much egg does the Washington Capitals have on their face in terms of the fact that their goaltending tandem last year was Vitek Vanacek, who's, was starting for New Jersey. Now he's the backup, and Ilya Samsonov, who they did not qualify as an RFA. The Leafs got him on a $1.8 million deal, and he's an arbitration-eligible RFA at the end of the year. And now I believe he's doubled the number of playoff victories with the victory last night that he had in his entire career.
Right.
He started, I don't think he was particularly strong in game 2. But for the rest of the series, I didn't really put the 4-1 deficit on Samsonov. I mean, Tampa was really going to the front of the net and creating chances. And, but last night he out-goaltended, and I didn't think this was possible. He out-goaltended Andrei Vasilevsky. He really didn't have a chance on the Stamkos goal. And throughout the rest of the game, he was just steady and made really good saves and kept that game tied as the pressure mounted going into overtime, and then made a few saves in overtime and enabled the Leafs to get the winner on Tavares' OT goal. So I'll say this, he's definitely the starter. But, and then people will laugh when I say this, don't rule out the possibility that down the line, if they keep going through the playoffs, that eventually you see Matt Murray in goal. Not because Samsonov isn't capable, but that
Murray wasn't even on the bench last
no,
night.
he's not. He's still not cleared. He's still not cleared. And the thing is, right now, and I mean, nobody is really concerned about this because everybody's focused on the Leafs.
Right.
Eric Shalgren is the e-bug, and Joseph Wall's the backup, and the Marlies, got destroyed 7-2 by Utica yesterday because Keith Petruzzelli was the goaltender.
Right.
You know, they want the Marlies to go deep in the Calder Cup playoffs, and because Murray is not cleared, they have to have both Marlies goaltenders who would normally be playing in the Calder Cup playoffs. They have to have them as backups. Maybe Murray is ready to back up for round 2. We'll see. He's been slowly ramping up, but that's sort of beside the point. Samsonov is the starter. He played really well. He's going to face a challenge, whether it be Bobrovsky in Florida or the likely Vezina Trophy winner in Linus Ullmark. You know, he's gonna be the goalie who's perceived as being the lesser of the two in the next round as well.
Jeremy W. Matt Murray better not get a chance to sit on the bench.
Jeremy, he is. I mean, I don't know. Again, I don't know what the reason and the reaction for like the anti Michael Bunting stuff, and I don't understand the anti Matt Murray stuff. He really wanted to get hurt. When he played, he was really good.
Yeah.
So, and he's won 2 Stanley Cups. So if you don't think the Leafs are not going to tap that well, if he's 100% healthy, he'll be the backup to Samsonov, and he may have an opportunity to get back in if Samsonov doesn't play well in a game. You don't know. So I don't see a problem with Matt Murray being the backup to Samsonov.
108 people in the chat right now. Many more joining in. This is the Convo. Norm and Mike and you. We are celebrating in this Sunday Spectacular in spectacular fashion, of course. Mike with his morning coffee, me with my morning water. The Maple Leafs are going on to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
I'm more cultured, Norm. It's tea.
It's is it Earl Grey tea?
No, it's English breakfast. Thank you very much.
Did you get that at Wegmans? Where'd you get that?
No, actually, I bought it in Canada. I bought it at Sobeys in Fort Erie.
At the duty free? Wow, you think Earl Grey tea? Sobeys. Yeah. So what did it cost you? $30? So
with the GST, I wouldn't doubt it.
New York's taxed to hell too. So you know a thing or two about that the extra cost. Yeah. So the Leafs get through to the second round before Boston does. That's interesting. You know, on Samsonov, 31 saves last night. He didn't give up a goal into the third period, and all of us were like, "Oh shit, here we go again." Yeah. But he didn't give up a goal until the third period, and Tampa had lots of chances. The thing with Samsonov last night, and I think everyone could detect this from the very early going, he was just steady, like, let's go. I'm your guy. I got you. It's not that the Leafs were tentative or looked nervous or anything like that, but Tampa's a damn good team. The Leafs are good. The Tampa's good. This series wasn't easy. Last year's series wasn't easy either.
The only issue I had with the Leafs' approach in the third was they were definitely trying to protect the 1-goal lead. Okay, I get that you don't want to get caught up the ice and give an odd man chance going the other way, but you can't sit in a defensive shell against Tampa. They're going, you knew that they were going to tie that game, and really, I think subconsciously the Leafs were sort of, okay, let's just not make a mistake and sit back, and then they allowed Tampa with their creativity to and it was a giveaway by Matthew Nyes, and we can go into how he's being utilized, which, I mean, he's a fantastic young player, but I think it's a little much to ask a guy fresh out of college to be on the top line with Matthews and Nylander. But you can't take anything away from the fact that he was on the ice for the 3 overtime winners. So he's definitely contributing, and he's definitely got the confidence of the coaches. But I do think that against a team, if they do play Boston, they're going to have to throttle it back a little bit and put him, say, with O'Reilly and have him play protected minutes. But last night, Norm, was when they made the trade for Rasmus Sandin at the deadline, I said, okay, Eric Gustafsson is insurance against Morgan Rielly getting hurt and having a power play quarterback. That's the only time that guy should be on the ice. Eric Gustafsson replaced Justin Hall as the worst defenseman on this team when Hall was sat, and they went 11-7. Eric Gustafsson is a horrible defensive zone defenseman, and he was the one on the ice and couldn't, Stamkos was standing there by himself when they tied the game. That guy should not be in the lineup. Timothy Liljegren played very well in limited minutes, and he hadn't played in 5 games. I am giving Justin Hall a permanent seat in the press box and play Liljegren all night long.
So you wouldn't, but in that, did you just say you don't want Gustafsson on the ice?
No, they went with 11-7. They should go with 6 defensemen, and
Right.
I think the only reason they went
have to do, and that's so, Mike. Sorry, that's a Keefe decision. Keefe
Yeah.
elevating Matthew Nyes to the top line. That's a Keefe decision. You know, Keefe made some alterations to the lineup last night, getting Justin Hall out of there. Eric Gustafsson had his challenges. Clearly, he only played like 7.5 minutes, and he was that much of a detriment. But Hall was out of the lineup, and a lot of people were excited about that. The question is, does he, having one like this, does he start against Boston or Florida like this, or will Keefe continue to tinker? Because it seems like when Keefe does make adjustments, whether on the fly arbitrarily or when he's forced to, he can be a pretty good coach. But when he just rides dudes out, and they let him down, everybody kind of shits
he has
not making the adjustments that he should when the time comes.
he has loyalty to players to a fault, I think, and with Hall,
a lot of coaches do, Mike.
Yes,
He's an old school kind of coach.
Yeah, I know, but my point is, and he stayed with a winning lineup, with for 5 games, or a lineup that was, and then brought Bunting back in when they lost, and Bunting played pretty well, and I think he's going to obviously be. I think what they're going to end up doing is Bunting will go back to his normal role on the top line with Matthew and Nylander, and maybe they shift Nyes down. I'm not criticizing Nyes. He looks fantastic. He's, he provides energy. He's got size. He's really creative. He plays well with skill, and they need that guy. So
10 NHL games, and most of them in the playoffs. At some point, the bubble's going to burst on this cat. Not because I want it to, but let's be serious. He's not Connor Bedard. He's not Connor McDavid. He's not Bobby, or
Norm, even and it's funny because apparently John Tavares is his landlord. He's staying with Tavares and his family. Even Tavares said it's like sometimes it's good for like a 20-year-old kid to have that sort of, not arrogance, but like oh, I can handle this. I'm stepping into the NHL, and not realize that this is tough. But he's playing with so much confidence that he's able to do what he's been doing, and he's been really good. I'm just saying, against a team like Boston or a team like Florida, if they pull the upset, they've got a lot of depth up front, and it's good to put him with a guy like O'Reilly and Achari who can cover up defensively for him instead of Matthews and Nylander, who I think are thinking more offensive minded. But Liljegren has been, I think, was their most improved defenseman during the year, and only because of the trust that they had, that Keefe had in Justin Hall, and their dependence on him as a penalty killer, did Hall continue to get chance after chance. But when you're on the ice for 14 of the 19 goals that Tampa scored going into Game 6, you can't play. And I'm just saying they should not go back to Justin Hall ever, but they probably will.
Yeah, they probably will. Arnav B just came here to say go Leafs go. Enjoy this, Norm. Now let's go get more boys. Do it for Toronto. That's how we're all feeling. We have that opportunity, Arnav, to keep dreaming, keep hoping, keep wishing. And there's an opportunity for a lot of these hopes, wishes, dreams to be fulfilled within the next month, 2 months. It's not like we're doing a kind of a eulogy show or discussing the Leafs in the aftermath of another disappointing loss like we did last year, the year before that. Mike, I was going through comments on the YouTube studio that I have to just kind of configure the show and make sure everything's fresh and ready to rock and everything's updated. And I've been kind of trying to backdate and catch up with a lot of comments from years ago, just liking them because I was trying to clear them all out. And I'm going back years and years and years. And
it's a cavalcade of misery. That's what
right. It's remarkable. Season starts, season ends, and people wanting to jump off the viaduct.
Jump off the Burlington Skyway. And
Right. And you have two opportunities leaving Toronto on your way down to Buffalo. It's either over the Welland Canal or Burlington.
The St. Catharines, that big. Oh my God.
Yeah, but again, just going back year after year, and it's like a time capsule. It's like, holy crap! It was just the misery and the dejection and the aimlessness that we all felt following another disappointing series loss. And it's not like the team going into those series was supposed to lose. A
No,
lot of times the Leafs were favored to win or in position to win. And here we are all these years later, it's finally happened. There is a surreal feeling to this morning, Mike.
well, look at it. Look at these 6 years before this. They were not favored against Washington or Boston. Washington was, I think, the President's Trophy winner that year, and Boston was the more veteran team. They were about even against Boston in 2019, and Boston came back from 3-2 and won the series. They were favored against Columbus, loss. They were heavily favored against Montreal, loss. They were favored against Tampa, loss. So this is their fourth crack as a favored team to win, and they finally did win. And maybe now that they've sort of broken the seal, they go on and they make a run. Leaf fans, Leaf fans hope so. Up and down the QEW, you know that it's a different day, Norm, when Biatch Marner in the chat is saying, and Mike in Buffalo is right for once. So
Right.
yeah, but I mean, like I said, Leaf fans, longtime Leaf fans, can rejoice that they've actually, it's, again, like I said, it's sort of pathetic that that Leaf fans had to celebrate, or just it was this expression, this sort of flushing in the streets of Toronto. I'm very happy but they were celebrating a first round victory when this team, who spends more money than anybody, who does a lot, and they could not break through for all this time. But I'm happy for the fans, and I'm happy for the organization, because I think it's I if I would have had a vote, which I don't, I would have voted to bring Kyle Dubas back. I think now that's a fait accompli. And if Dubas is coming back now that they have a win, I think Sheldon Keefe is going to come back. But they're not satisfied. They want to advance. And it's going to be a tough road to hoe if it's Boston, because Boston, they're not unbeaten. They're not invincible. Florida has proven that they're not invincible, even if they lose in 7 games. But it's going to be a tough road.
Look, Mike, fans are fans. You reminded me of this the last time we collabed. Fan is short form for
fanatic.
When the Leafs lose, everybody wants everyone fired. Like TJ Brody was garbage in the game 5 loss. And guess who everybody was lauding for a terrific effort in game 6? TJ Brody. The Leafs and their fans celebrate anything they can, because the opportunities to celebrate are infrequent. So going back years and years and years, even into the Maple Leaf Gardens days when the Leafs were doing their thing in 92 and 93, 94, fans would spill out onto Carlton, down Church, down Yonge, down College, and they would rejoice, and they would be loud, and they would be honking, and they would be on the street, down Yonge Street, like it was Halloween. If anybody from Toronto who's from back in the 70s and 80s remembers that everybody would congregate on Yonge Street on Halloween, and it was akin to that. Just so much activity, and everybody was excited. And you'd have Habs fans criticizing them, because the only time that Habs fans would do anything on St. Catherine Street would be when they won a Stanley Cup, or when they lost, they would set fire to things, or when they won, they would set fire to things. Look, I don't mind fans rejoicing and it being excited and spilling into the streets and enjoying themselves, especially since this bubble finally burst. There's a lot of energy that needs to be expended. But just in general right now, having Maple Leaf Square and thousands of people there, what the hell do you think they're going to do after a game?
Yeah.
I think they're just going to pack it in and go home. All the Canadian teams, the American teams now are doing this, where they have everybody collect in a kind of a common space outside of the arena where the game is taking place.
They,
And
they they love the optics of it on TV.
right. But again, they lose. They most of them go home drunk with their tail between their legs. Some may be a little unruly, but especially in a clinching position, and there's all these people downtown, and the energy is palpable, and you could cut the tension with a knife, and
Well,
and then finally the bubble bursts, the air is released, and this we can relax for 2 minutes. What the hell did you think would happen? I don't poo-poo on them. I don't think it's pathetic. I don't think it's shameful. Go out and have a damn good time. Why the hell?
I'm not saying that the fans are pathetic. I'm saying that it is pathetic that it's taken 19 years for this organization
That is pathetic.
to give them a reason to
Not
celebrate.
action.
Yeah. So, and by the way, the thing is, and I've walked through Maple Leaf Square many a time. It's not a very big area. The video sort of belies the fact there's maybe 200 to 300 people in there, all in that sort of like I would say, it's the area of maybe like two big backyards. So it's not. It's
Where
not.
the hell do you live? This is property in abundance.
Well, I live in Western New York, where we actually have big backyards. No, but what I'm saying is, but what happened last night were fans coming out of coming out of the high rises, or coming out of their houses, or coming out of their apartments. It was just, I don't begrudge them that at all. It's like, so I'm just, in a way, I'm just glad I didn't have to deal with it if they had won in Game 5. I was up covering the game. I probably wouldn't have gotten home until 3:00 in the morning, because apparently the subways and the TTC and everything was slowed down. But who cares? Like, who cares? I'm just saying, allow them to celebrate. And thankfully, from what I hear, nothing criminal happened. It was just a celebration, and that's good.
Fans in Toronto, for the most part, aren't like that, Mike.
That's good. I'm glad.
We know that about Leafs fans, Raptors fans, Blue Jays fans. So the Leafs, who knows how far they get. We do know that in October there will be a massive celebration in downtown Toronto. The Blue Jays winning the World Series. Mike, come on, Mike. That's what I love about you. You know your baseball, but you're just too indoctrinated into Yankee faith and culture to see it. You can't see the forest through the trees.
If you had more than 2 starters, I would say.
Yeah, that's right. Are you insane, buddy? Every one of these guys is throwing 6+ innings lately. So,
Cole,
can I bring up one of our one-off sponsors, please? So, Lamer's Appraisal. I'm told that the housing market in southwestern Ontario and the GTA is beginning to heat up again, my friends. So why not learn the true value of your home? You need a professional residential appraisal service like Lamer's Appraisal Services. Serving Durham Region, Northumberland County, Peterborough County, and Quinte West, Lamer's Appraisal Services is your go-to for home evaluations, especially if you're thinking of selling. Find out the true value of your home today. You can call Lamer's Appraisal Services at 647-227-9534, or you can shoot them an email at lamersappraisalservices@hotmail.com. It's nice to have some of our OGs and converts joining in with the project, not just through eyes and ears, but wanting to get their products promoted and viewed and highlighted, and getting some extra exposure through the project right now, especially since we have so many eyes and ears on us at this point. So,
and we want,
Mike, the Leafs won, and that's great. Had the Leafs lost, that would have sucked, and we would have emphasized the terrible, and then we would have marched towards Game 7 completely freaking out. Everybody would have been on edge. So we've avoided that. But we're going to be in that situation again in round 2, whether it's the Leafs down 0-3 and needing to kind of stay alive, or in a position to clinch. We're headed for those days again, Mike. Sheldon Keefe's crew is through to the second round. Forget about the run of futility. Forget about finally ending the failure. Forget about all that. Going into Game 1 against whomever, what is the plan? Because Keefe has made some adjustments, and they've worked to his benefit. They've worked to hurt them a little bit, but they're into round 2. game 1 coming up, hopefully midweek. It'll probably be against Boston. What the hell is the plan now?
Well, the game 7, Boston, Florida is tonight. So I would say that the odds are it would be Tuesday, late at the latest on Wednesday. But like 09 Max in the chat is saying, if it's Tuesday, then they can go Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and they would want Saturday, which would be in Toronto if it's Boston, at Scotiabank Arena for game 3. So it could start on Tuesday, which leaves the Leafs a little time. Maybe they get one practice in before they go to Boston. If it's Florida, then Florida's coming to Toronto, so they would have home ice advantage over Florida, whereas Boston's going to have home ice advantage as long as they are in the playoffs. The tactics for against each team are completely different because Boston is a loaded team with a 4-line offensive attack with 2 number 1 defensemen in Lindholm and McAvoy, with a really good support staff, with some toughness, guys like Garnet Hathaway, with former Leaf Nick Foligno. They're deep. Now, the one thing that has to be a concern for Boston, and something that the Leafs might be able to take advantage of, is the fact that Bergeron was out with an undisclosed injury for the first 4 games of the series against Florida, and Krejci was out up until game 6. So you've got 2 sort of veteran centers who are dealing with something that we don't know, but that's something that the Leafs can take advantage of with Matthews and Tavares and O'Reilly playing up the middle. That right. is their distinct advantage. Now, Florida, you have to. Florida, there's one guy, and it's Matthew Tkachuk, and he has sort of willed the Panthers to game 7. And he's a chicken with his head cut off. He is big. He hits. He's a young Corey Perry with more scoring ability.
Right.
And that will be something that'll be difficult to deal with. But obviously, I think their defense is their biggest flaw. They have Ekblad and they have Montour, but their defense is not deep, and Boston has exploited it at times. So it's going to be 2 different approaches against 2 vastly different opponents.
Man, OG's conference, we get to watch game 7 tonight and breathe easy.
Yeah.
Like, and we can root a little bit for the Panthers. We can root a little bit for the Bruins, and let's hope this thing goes into quintuple overtime. Is that a thing, Mike? Has anybody ever done that? Was that?
Oh yeah.
Devils. No.
Double Sabres was 3 or 4. No, there was a Philadelphia
7 or something like that. Capitals Islanders.
That was 2 overtimes.
Oh, forever.
No. I think it was Flyers and someone, Keith Primo scored. I think it was 5th overtime, something like that.
Right. But the point is, we get to watch hockey tonight and enjoy it for all of its incredible frenetic qualities, its dramatic, intense qualities, and know that regardless of the outcome, we have a team that will be standing there at the gate waiting for whomever makes it through. A beautiful thing. And Mike, it doesn't feel like the Leafs completely emptied the tank to get here.
No, and I have to say, the Leafs coming through the first round, Keefe said that they were dealing with some minor bumps and bruises, but really they didn't lose anybody of significance other than Bunting for a 3-game suspension. And okay, I don't think purposefully he went out and did this, but the loss of Cernak really hurt Tampa Bay. Not to say
I wonder who put him out.
Well, but right, but what I'm saying is, I don't think Bunting said, I'm going to go out and knock Cernak out of the series.
Right.
He didn't, but he did knock him out, and that made Tampa's defense even more vulnerable, along with Hedman being
2 years ago, Mike. 2 years ago, number 91 was knocked out of the series.
Right.
Sure, the Leafs went up 3-1, but they could have used John Tavares to pop in a goal or 2 when they were sputtering. It makes a difference.
Yeah, and my point is, no, I don't think O'Reilly's hurt. He's got the finger, and somebody was saying he's got a splint on his. I don't think he's playing hurt. But maybe somebody like Brody is. That's what the defense always takes abuse more than the forward in a playoff scenario. But last night Jake McCabe played 27 minutes. He played more than Riley. He played more Giordano. He played more than Brody. So
and it's their pleasure to, Mike.
Yeah, and
they'll play 40 minutes a game if they can. Like, it's 82 games plus the 6. They're at 88 games now. You're going to dip into the hundreds of games, 100 plus games in the season if you want to go all the way. It is their pleasure to. And some guys are nicked, hurt. There's a lot of probably bumps and bruises and minor injuries that don't keep anyone out of a lineup that we don't know about, that maybe only the coaching staff and the training staff know about, and maybe they don't even know about.
And if you think that the acquisitions at the deadline didn't make any difference, the hit leaders last night.
Well,
Luke Shen 8, Noel Achari 8,
right,
McCabe 7.
Yeah,
there you go.
But the only people who would suggest that are people who don't follow the team or don't like the Maple Leafs, right? Or trying to gin up an idea that everything the Leafs have done hasn't amounted to anything. That's bullshit. We all know that. So nobody, I don't know of anybody who doesn't believe the way the Leafs were augmented and strengthened down the stretch isn't paying dividends.
I think that this victory is a shot across the bow of the analytics crowd who thought that they could win purely on skill.
Why do we care? Why do we care?
Oh no, I'm saying. I mean, I
lost. Like they have no.
My approach when it comes to hockey is that analytics are important, but also that the eye test and seeing players doing what they do is important. And I think the fact that they had to go out and add players who provided that sandpaper and that snarl was what got them over the line in this series. So now they're going to face, if Boston wins, which I expect them to, but every Leaf fan is rooting for Florida tonight. If Boston wins, it's going to be a very similar thing to Tampa Bay. One thing, Boston doesn't have as good a goaltender as Tampa does, so that's an advantage. And I said you've got a 37-year-old Bergeron and I think a 37-year-old Krejci. I might be off by a year.
Did you just say that Linus Ullmark isn't as good as Andrei Vasilevsky?
He's not. I mean, he's going to win the Vezina. He's had a great year, but he's not. I mean, please, Vasilevsky's won 2 Stanley Cups and been to a Stanley Cup final. What has Ullmark won? He's going to win a Vezina. He's had a good regular season. But
a record-breaking regular season.
I give them all the credit in the world. Everything has been fantastic. In a playoff series, would you rather have Linus Ullmark or Vasilevsky? Anybody in their right mind would say Vasilevsky. So, but that's. I'm just saying they're a really good team. They're a really deep team. I mean, guys like they bring in Tyler Bertuzzi, and I think arguably he was their best forward in the 6 games. It's going to be tough to beat that team. And right, Colin in the chat says the Bruins are struggling. Florida is making them struggle with the way that they're playing. But okay. I'll say this, and I understand what's
Mike 11. I want Boston. Reference the comment, Mike, for those who are just listening to us.
Well, okay, I understand Spike's point of view in the sense that he wants a complete flushing of the angst out of Leafs Nation, and beating the Bruins after they've lost to them 3 times in the last decade in 7 games, and beating them when they've won the President's Trophy and everybody thinks that they're going to win the Stanley Cup would be akin to the Giants beating the Patriots in their perfect season in the NFL, in the Super Bowl, or the Red Sox beating the Yankees in 2004 after 86 years of futility. Revenge, fine. But if you're thinking of it logically, you don't want to play the best team. You want to play the worst team that you possibly can to make it as easy for you as you possibly can.
So do you think Florida, if magically, miraculously, can get past Boston tonight, will be operating on fumes and eventually completely peter out against the Maple Leaf team? So they're the better bet.
I mean, the advantage of rest is a couple days, so I don't think it's going to be significant. No, I mean, yeah, they're going to be banged and bruised a little more because they're playing 7 games instead of 6, and Boston plays a particular type of game. But no, I don't think I don't think the rest advantage or the wear and tear is the biggest thing. I just think, you look at Florida and how they snuck into the playoffs and how they had to ride Alex Lyon, who's a career backup, and played him into the playoffs because he was the hot guy, compared to the Bruins, who broke the record of the 77 Canadians. I mean, like I said, I mean you have to be completely dumb to not want to play the Panthers. But I think the Leafs they've earned that right to sort of sit back and say, okay, let's see who we're going to play, rather than, Spike, Ryan O'Reilly beat the Bruins in Game 7 with St. Louis in 2019. So yes, there is that. But again, the Bruins are, from point A to point Z, the better of the two teams, and it's not taking anything away from Florida. Because Florida, if they beat the Bruins, it's not out of the realm of possibility that they beat the Leafs. But I'm just saying, if I'm the Leafs, and they won't say this publicly, I'm saying go Panthers, and that's probably.
LJ, Florida won the President's Trophy last year. No, kind of sounds like the same route Tampa took before
Yes.
its first cup. Just saying, and that's the thing, Mike. Both of these teams are dangerous within their own right. We know what Boston presents. The Leafs handled Boston pretty well during the regular season and lost some close games to them. And I can't see Boston overrunning the Leafs.
No.
They may wear them down and beat them, in ways that the Leafs just can't contend with. That remains to be seen. But on the flip side, if Florida can come out of that series with a win, hair on fire, led by Matt Tkachuk, having had success the year prior, and just from a momentum standpoint, the Leafs, not having that same mentality they probably would against wanting revenge against Boston, certainly problematic. And again, this idea that one team is less than the other. If you make it to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, you're doing something right. You have some kind of momentum. There is something special about you. And any opponent that takes you for granted is good for you, and too bad for them. Even if the Leafs, even with the Leafs winning in 6 and not emptying the tank, so to speak, and still having plenty of fight left and still plenty of energy left and still options to go to, it's not like the Leafs are home and cooled at all. They could go splat in the second round, and then we could have the discussion as to whether guys like Keefe and Dubas really do deserve to be extended, because there's going to be more disappointment to come potentially. To negate that disappointment, the Leafs have to reset and get fired up and play with some more emotion and purpose, because they have the chance to, Mike. Last word to you, and we're out of here.
Yeah, the Leafs played the Bruins 4 times. They lost both games at TD Garden. One was in overtime. One was a late goal against Matt Murray. They won 2-1. That was the night that Samsonov got hurt on the Marchand penalty shot, and their defense was short, so they won basically playing shutdown in the third period with Eric Shalgren in goal. And then they lost 5-2 on February the 1st. I was at that game. It was a complete domination. So, yeah, I mean, they can hang with the Bruins, but the Bruins have been the best team throughout the year. Now, they're not playing like the best team now, and that's because Florida's sort of taking it to them. So, maybe
Playoffs.
It's the playoffs. It's a completely different animal. As we know that we saw that in this series with Tampa, and now we sit back and wait to see who the Leafs are going to play and whether the series opens in Toronto on Tuesday or Wednesday, or whether it opens at TD Garden.
Guys, like the content, subscribe to the channel. We're almost at 3,600 subs. I'd like to get there. I think we're about 25 away. If the Leafs go on a super long run and get to the conference finals, I mean, we're going to hit some huge numbers, huge metrics, and that's a really, really good thing. Our ascent is attached to the wagon that the Leafs are pulling right now, and it's our pleasure too. Do me a favor, guys. Make sure that you are in tune with me, whether it's through the channel, through Instagram or whatever, so you know what we're doing next. In all likelihood, I'll be doing a show a night, just for a short period of time, just so we can get whatever we have on our chest off of our chest. Who knows what's going to be happening in between the games. A lot of times people want to talk to me, send me text messages, and I appreciate it all. But I think this is the best venue to exchange ideas, thoughts, because we have a lot to say. There's a lot going on in our minds. There's a lot going on in our hearts because we're excited and we're happy. So this is our meeting place, and at Toronto, that's what Toronto means, meeting place. So the Leafs Convo, meeting place for you throughout the duration of the Leafs run in the playoffs. And then, after that, Mike and I will be with you at least once a week. If you're on Instagram, check me out at Norm at Oak Ridge Ford. I post a lot of my delivery photos there. I do some reels on some of the vehicles that I have for sale or that are really cool. I know a lot of you are on Instagram at Norm at Oak Ridge Ford. Follow me. I will follow you back. I'm not one of those guys who wants you to give me support, but I do not reciprocate, not at all. And even on Twitter, at I am Norman James. Follow me. I'll follow you back. Mike, what's your HockeyBuzz column going to be about? I wonder.
Well, today I always do the podcast, put the podcast in the blog for Sundays. But on tomorrow, it's going to be, I would say probably the key players were the players that the Leafs added at the deadline. The core carried it, but this team would not have won had Kyle Dubas not gone out and gotten O'Reilly and Achari and Shen and McCabe.
Yep, and good on him. Those guys have made a major impact, and the impact is still yet to be fully realized because there's more opportunity to make an impact. One little question before we go. And again, we're trying to get out of here. We've got a day to complete. Hab Slayer, it's now or never for the Maple Leafs. Yes and no. Yes and no. It's now or never for the Maple Leafs. That's an interesting way to put it because it's never, but it's all about the now. So we'll let you guys ponder that, and we can discuss more about your thoughts and your feelings regarding this Maple Leafs run. A winner in 6 games over the Tampa Bay Lightning. John Tavares, with a little help from Darren Radish's skate, clinching it, sealing the deal, sending Tampa home, and moving Toronto into the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, a position it has not been in since 2004. It's a wonderful thing. Let's enjoy it. In the meantime, have a fantastic Sunday, guys, and we'll be back with you very shortly. For Mike Augello, I'm Norm James. Thanks for joining us. We are out.